Let's start with what is Rocket Health?
So we are a primarily digital mental health care company, full stack therapy and psychiatry delivered online.
Online therapy, it's a marketplace.
The difference is we're not a marketplace. Think of it as a hospital on cloud.
Right now, I want to rewind to day zero. How did you guys get this idea on day zero and how did you guys get started?
Both of us were trying to help people during COVID. We started Rocket Health on a Wix website.
What was the bottleneck? What was the biggest bottleneck?
Honestly, we didn't know how we would scale this, right? I mean, I could keep on adding new users, but if they would not enjoy the service or the product we delivered, or the therapy session quality, if they did not like, they would not want to come back or recommend other users.
What should they watch out for if they are doing online health services?
I feel it has to.
Welcome to Zero to Momentum. I'm sitting here with Abhineet, co-founder of Rocket Health. Welcome, Abhineet. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you, Raj. Thank you for inviting me. It's really exciting to be here.
I'm glad. So let's start with what is Rocket Health?
Well, for starters, I think we are known for mental health care. People take online therapy and psychiatry. Today, 4 years into building the company, we deliver almost more than 1 lakh therapy sessions across India and some internationally as well. So we are a primarily digital mental health care company, full stack therapy and psychiatry delivered online.
Okay.
We have a bunch of 0 to 1 experiments in digital health and wellness also on the side, which we've added last year. So yeah, I mean, we're trying to punch above our weight and kind of build a solid healthcare brand for India.
Amazing. So online therapy, it's a marketplace. How many therapists do you have on your platform right now?
Right. So I think the difference is we're not a marketplace.
Okay.
We've gone full stack, right? Like we
Got it.
bring psychologists and psychiatrists in-house, like on our payroll. Think of it as a hospital on cloud. Today, I think there are more than 100 plus healthcare professionals. That includes counseling, clinical psychologists, and that also includes psychiatrists. So
Awesome.
It's a 100 plus healthcare team. Probably the core, management team is like 30 people. So 130 people, like large company now.
Awesome. And how many users / customers have gone through your offering?
I think last time I checked, probably more than 100,000 folk
Wow.
would have gone
Okay.
through Rocket Health by now.
Fascinating.
And that's been really powerful. But I think more than that, our brand has also reached millions of people through our content. So now I think people, at least in a lot of tier 1, tier 2 cities, have started to know Rocket Health.
Amazing. Fascinating. So I'm going to ask you a lot about that, but right now I want to rewind to day zero,
Right.
Because that's what we want to focus on, which is you are one of the co-founders. Your sister, Dr. Ritika, is the second co-founder.
Right.
How did you guys get this idea on day zero and how did you guys get started?
A lot of times people think you have an intention to start a business and you end up starting that. In our case, it was also very organic and accidental. During COVID, when I was back from the US and when Ritika was, after her MBBS graduation at home in Gaya, Bihar, both of us were trying to help people during COVID. We started Rocket Health on a Wix website
Awesome.
with a, Namecheap domain, which we scooped up because my last company was called Rocket Food. We chose this name, it was memorable. And then we just started a primary digital healthcare volunteer effort where people could call in and get a doctor consult around COVID. So it wasn't
Amazing.
mental health when we started.
Oh, wow.
We just wanted to help people with COVID, really get a consult because those days it was really tough, especially during, in April. COVID phase 2, I think it was really tough to really catch hold of a doctor. So we just started doing that, and in that process we saw that a lot of people who were calling in were going through depression, anxiety. We all were actually going through mental health challenges, and it dawned upon us that being in a small town, there was no access to a great psychologist around us or even a lot of psychiatrists, and we felt that that could be an opportunity on which we can build upon. So through those early conversations where we were trying to help people, it taught us that mental health care could be a space we could build into. And then obviously in the US, I had seen global benchmarks, there was inspiration, but we had to forge our own path from there. So it started very accidental.
Yeah, accidental and very organic,
Very
a Wix website, a phone number.
That's it.
How many calls did you guys take during COVID? Do you remember, cumulative?
I think in 3 weeks, I think we processed almost 4,000 calls. We got Ritika's whole med school, juniors to pitch in, all the MBBS grads, newly minted grads were on call with us.
Amazing.
My parents, they're doctors, so mom's a gynecologist, dad's a surgeon, so we have a hospital, so we had our own network of doctors in Bihar, so we got all of them online.
Amazing.
And it wasn't even a software driven thing, right? It was mostly you fill a form and a doctor calls you. It was the most simple experiment to prototype if this has potential. And if you remember, COVID accelerated the use of digital health. So it was a very strong inflection point for us.
Correct.
It taught us that, okay, digitally, some aspects of care can be delivered.
Amazing. So that was, while that was a pretty traumatic time,
Yeah.
so many things were tested. People were talking to doctors
Right.
digitally, getting help digitally, video calls, phone calls, whatever. Right after that, when you discovered all these data points that,
Right.
you know, mental health is an unmet need,
Right.
what was the next step? Like, did you guys then deliberately decide that we should offer mental health digitally, or what was the next step?
Yeah, honestly, Raj, I think back then we were clear that mental health will be like one of our flagship categories. We studied the ecosystem a little bit, obviously. Like we did our homework about the India market. We studied like what models worked in America. I think when you benchmark, it gives you some reference point to build upon. And then we brought in our own like, you know, insights about healthcare. We knew that brand building would be extremely important in this space because at the end of the day, you have to develop trust. We know it from healthcare that healthcare works on trust and quality. So those two things were going to be key tenets. So the first thing we did was, after research, we decided we'll pack our bags and move to Bangalore. We just wanted to be close to, you know, more entrepreneurial folks.
Sure.
Being
And
in
you were in Bihar before.
we were in Bihar, like we obviously like had built a lot of momentum there. We could have stayed back, but we just felt being in Bangalore would give us that, you know, sample size and that exposure which we needed, like some more inspiration,
Sure.
being closer to the startup ecosystem. So we moved here, rented a startup house. In true blue startup fashion, and just the two of us, and there we started. Like I think the Wix website slowly, you know, we started like using no code and low code to,
Yeah.
you know, build our first version of a product. And we started talking to a lot of psychologists and psychiatrists in our network. Because when you do that kind of user research, we believed that we would discover insights and also people in that journey who we want to work with.
Correct. So right when you put that first version of the product, let's call it a website or no code, after
Right.
coming to Bangalore, what did you first match people to these psychologists in your network, or you decided that you needed to get a couple of these people in-house? How did the first
Right.
5 sessions happen with the first 5 users?
It was crazy. I mean, we weren't even looking to hire people, but we started like, you know, announcing our intention on LinkedIn. And I think social media is a big part of where we are today because we were so authentic with our intention.
Yeah.
We wanted
Your
people.
Instagram's amazing, by the way.
No, thank you. So we wanted to like tell people about what we want to build. Like the build in public thing was also very fashionable back then. So we really wanted to break it down, the whole journey of like moving from Bihar, and, you know, talk to people about why we want to build mental health care. And in that, in those conversations on social media, we discovered a bunch of people we talked to. And one of the individuals we talked to, we really liked her. Her name's Kalyani. She still works with us. Like I think 4-year anniversary of Rocket Health and 4 years Kalyani. Like we added her to the team as a freelancer to begin with because we were like, should we go all in? We didn't know what model we were going to build. But the moment we worked with her for a week, we were like, man, like we need to bring her in. Like we need to help, you know, take her help and build this together. So we onboarded her onto the team as a first full-time person. Now today she leads our counseling therapy vertical. Like
and she's a counselor therapist.
She is a counselor. She's a counseling therapist. So like with her help, we figured out like, you know, the whole category in general. We figured out the best practices in supervision, learning, like, you know, what therapy truly is, like beyond what we knew, right? So we needed to do that learning also to deliver good healthcare quality.
By the way, quick, hiring Kalyani or doing that very first things, how did you pay for that?
Yeah,
right
I think
at zero.
Honestly, like when we moved, like we had some intention that we want to double down in this space. So we definitely had like capital allocated like from our own funds as well. But we were lucky to discover On Deck also, like that journey.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's where I think Gautam came in, and he like pitched in and he said, hey, I want to like, you know, invest in Rocket Health through On Deck. So I think that was like a big moment for us because that was a strong validation that people like really believed in the digital mental health care space as well. So On Deck and Gautam had a huge role in like giving us that early push and momentum. So that gave us like funds which we could like, you know, risk, we could experiment, we can explore.
Amazing. Well, shout out to Gautam, who for the audience, by the way, is my co-founder at Inuka Capital. But that's amazing. So Kalyani came in, you had some capital, and then did you had to worry about having, as long as the therapist counselors were licensed or had a degree, you could have users having sessions with them? How did that piece of it work?
We saw like a lot of other platforms were not focusing on quality. Like it was any kind of professional onboarded. We did not ever want to be that space. Like we were always going to be healthcare led. So it was extremely important to obviously get the qualifications right. It had to be like a counseling psychologist who's trained and, who's graduated to do that. A clinical psychologist who has a license to kind of like deliver online clinical therapy. But it wasn't just qualifications. I feel like when you're trying to build a service led product like we did, you need to find talent, especially in a healthcare space, because it's a one-on-one space. It's very human led also. So like the culture, the rapport building, the values they bring to the table also matter. So you got to evaluate those folks. If I'm building a hospital tomorrow, I have to evaluate them on values as well. So similarly, we had to make that nuanced decision making and incorporate that into our interview process. It was very important. So I mean, early on it was just like conversational. Then it turned into like a framework of interviews. Today we have a 4-step screening process and we have a demo round of therapy. So now it's pretty organized. But when I look back, I think like we were just figuring it out on the go.
So back then, what kind of person, and maybe this is many different types of people, but what kind of person was coming in to access this therapy, and what was this costing them?
Honestly, Raj, like, whenever I've built a startup and this is my second, like, company, the first time, I went out to recruit, like, customers on ground. I did a food tech company and I knocked on all my neighbors in my apartment complex. And that's how I told them about the last company I built, which was Rocket Food. So in this case too, in true blue, like startup fashion, we really told about Rocket Health to everyone in our network to begin with. Then we like shouted out loud on social media, because I think social media is what allowed us to accelerate our first few hires. So we knew that could work. When we started doing a lot of organic content on Instagram, like, we started getting organic leads. Those leads, we wouldn't just let them convert organically. We would try to talk to them to understand their intention. Why are they reaching out to us, right? When you understand and talk to your users, you learn so many different insights, which are not available if you let them just funnel through a software. So we had to talk to a lot of, first like few thousand users to understand how to shape the product strategy, how to shape the growth strategy. Eventually, obviously, we scaled that by running like performance marketing and, scaling up our content production both, right? Like, so today, like Rocket Health is built on obviously our content, which like helps us build a brand, and, like performance, which helps us scale our growth. But obviously there are different chunks to growth.
Okay. So again, I'm going to go back to the first 90 days when you were in Bangalore, when you started, when Kalyani came. What was the biggest bottleneck you came across as you guys were trying to get this journey off the ground? What created most doubt? What was the bottleneck? What was the biggest bottleneck?
Honestly, we didn't know how we would scale this, right? Like we knew there's a market, but how do we find and discover our customer base? So, I mean, maybe when you run content, you start getting a few leads here and there and you talk to them and you validate that there's definitely like a market out there, but how do you scale that growth funnel? That's something we weren't sure. Like we also were not sure if people are going to pay money to take therapy, because see, like in 2021 or 2022, like early, like it was still a very new concept in India, like taking online therapy. So we had to validate that as well. So when we like built a product which worked very seamlessly, right, from driving you, from our Instagram to probably going to the website, filling a form, to scheduling on Calendly, like again another no-code tool, right? Like to making a payment. That's when we started realizing, oh, here's a market, like which is getting validated. Now, how do I discover like thousands of these users? Like right now, I'm getting like 10, 20 like folks coming in, 10, 20 sessions a day. Amazing. First 3 months, I'm getting that validation. But how do I build the mechanics of scaling that? So we weren't sure. So we had to do a lot of growth experiments.
And scale, by the way, was not just about growth mechanics. It's also a very cultural phenomena that you're touching on, right? Like 10, 20, 100 people. There are people also in any urban format that do access therapy, but then there are a lot of people that don't go to therapy. So I'm guessing you were doing some education, marketing as well.
No, I mean, it's important to like do that, right? Like we were trying to cancel the stigma around mental health. So all like we knew brand was going to play a big role in doing that. Like the content we produce is going to play a big role in doing that. A lot of people, they drive performance marketing and the funnel customers and conversions come in, but that's just like 10% of what you got to do, right? Like you have to be memorable as a brand so that tomorrow, like even if I don't know what mental health care is, I understand like what Rocket Health stands for. Tomorrow when I need therapy, I'll come to you, right? So like our content, the intention with which we would build that was very authentic. It was to teach obviously about mental health, but in a very cool manner, not in a healthcare-led manner, not in a blue and white healthcare model.
And how much were you charging for these therapy sessions?
Back then we were like 600 rupees a session. So we were
600 rupees a session. Now, can you help me compare this to what therapy usually costs in across India on average or in the urban format?
So in 2022, 600 was like a pretty affordable price for a therapy session. And on average, like we saw a lot of competition, like even going cheaper than that, by the way, and a lot of competition which was very expensive than that. I feel like you had to hit the sweet, price point to really.
But if I have to go in person physically for therapy in
that
Bangalore,
costs probably 5 grand rupees right now.
5,000 a session.
Yeah.
So it was very accessible.
It was very accessible. Like the beauty of the product was that you could log in from your rooftop and just take a therapy session.
Right on my WhatsApp.
You just need internet. That's it. On your Google Meet or on a WhatsApp video call.
And that 600 has that.
That's scaled now.
That's scaled.
Of course, like with inflation.
But how much? Like 900?
I think it's still like around 1,100 rupees.
Okay.
It's still probably very affordable. So like our USP was to make it very accessible.
Understood. So, and what, so the bottleneck, as you said, was how to scale it. And then what were other than content, what were the experiments to help scale that from?
I think I'd like to say that the product quality or the healthcare quality was extremely key to build retention in, because I mean I could keep on adding new users, but if they would not enjoy the service or the product we delivered, or the therapy session quality, if they did not like, they would not want to come back or recommend other users. One of the reasons why we won was because of word of mouth or because of referrals which came through other users who would come and take therapy with us. That happened because our emphasis was on getting the product right, the pricing right, the positioning right. So one was obviously hiring the right set of psychologists and psychiatrists. The other thing is branding and positioning it right and pricing it right. So if all of those things fell into like the right manner in front of the customer, like mostly the customer will take therapy, and then eventually if they like their session, their psychologist, they would recommend others. So that also leads to growth, right? Like it's very product led also.
So if they like it, if they're comfortable, they'll recommend it. And I guess if they liked it, how many times do they usually continue? What's the cadence? Like, does somebody come in and do perpetual sessions, 8 to 10 sessions? What's the average?
The average would be probably like 7 to 8 sessions right now.
But
7 to 8. There are users who have taken like probably more than 100 sessions as well.
Oh wow.
Power users like in an extreme end. There are folks who come like once in a while, like once in a year, and come repeat as well. So it's a very different kind of behavior set across different users. But
do they tend to talk to the same person?
They do want to talk to the same psychologist usually, unless they're recommended like to another vertical, let's say like counseling to clinical or counseling to psychiatry and so on.
Right.
So we built a full stack mental health care layer, right?
Yeah.
So today I come for talk therapy or counseling therapy. I might like be recommended for psychiatry.
Sure.
I might even order meds with Rocket Health. I might even get like my diagnostic checks around mental health care, a diagnostic panel through Rocket Health. So it's like a 360-degree mental health care ecosystem.
Got it. So back then, you obviously had this bottleneck, you had growth experiments. And when did you feel that, wow, now we have arrived, this is a viable business? Like, was it a critical point? Was it a number of therapists? Was it getting the quality right? When did you feel that you guys had arrived?
Honestly, like when we started, like the first month, we did 1.2 lakh in revenue, if I'm not wrong.
That was the first month?
First month.
Okay, so that was like 100 sessions in your...
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
And that took us...
And sorry, those 100 sessions were done by 5 people, I'm guessing.
They were probably done by like, three people. Okay,
3 people,
makes sense. Right? And the model was not like very structured, like, oh, everyone we're gonna hire on payroll. So we wanted to like be very frugal with how we invest. So we went with freelance also. We did payroll also. We wanted to figure out what works where, right?
Sure.
100 sessions did give us like a strong confidence boost. Like just the first month, right? Yeah. If you get like 1 lakh in revenue without a lot of marketing spends, and you see the same people coming back again, like you have certain retention and even like M0.
Yeah.
I think that was a very solid blueprint for us.
No, very good. So 100 sessions, very specific. How many of them, of those 100 people repeated?
I think in the first month, I don't have exact numbers, but I'm pretty sure it's upwards of 25%, 25 to 30%.
Which is quite large as well, because people were just trying this.
And we weren't a brand new, we were just a fresh new site. That's
correct. So 100 sessions. So it sounds like this is all great, and you guys were in momentum since the Bihar chapter in a way. Like you had Wix website, so you were developing this muscle. It seems like the main nucleus of this is the quality of the therapist or your interview process or who you were getting in, right? So even those first 3, 4, 5 people, I'm sure it'd be very hard as this becomes 50, 100, 200 people. So back then, what did you guys do other than, of course, having a stringent interview process? What is it that you required the therapist be like? Is it certain attributes and characters you guys have defined, or some training, or what was it back then?
You know, it wasn't just for psychologists, it was for our teammates as well. I feel like we index very heavily on vibes. The people we want to be around, like we usually end up hiring them. Like, you know, in therapy too, like rapport building is a key concept. Like you might be technically very sound as a psychologist, but if you can't really build a rapport with someone you meet in a therapy session, it gets really tricky for the other person to buy into the therapeutic journey. So I think like we definitely indexed on like their ability to build rapport with someone in a therapy setting. Same thing for our management team too. Like, you know, as we hired like, you know, marketers or, you know, growth folks or like, you know, folks who helped us build our supply, like we do like indexing on like vibes. We keep saying like, you know, you got to vibe with the other person. Like they might come from a marquee university, they might be like having a lot of experience. None of that matters. At the end of the day, like if together you can have fun, because those days are like a big struggle the first couple of years. You don't know what's going to come, whether you'll survive or not. So it better be good and better be fun.
So by the way, does that also mean that a lot of these therapists, whether they were on payroll or not, you had them in person with you in the office?
So that's the beauty of it. We had everyone online, and
You had
coordinating with them and making them feel part of the culture and organizing and architecting an operational system which works. That meant like going on a lot of like Google Meets. That meant like being in touch with them on our Slack. Early on it was WhatsApp, then transition to Slack. So constant recurring communication.
Makes sense. So just to double click on that remote culture, yes, Slack, Google Meets meetings. Did you have daily stand-ups? Like what was can you talk about like an exact week or a day of how that remote team was working? Do all the therapists join one stand-up every day?
No, so we did a weekly healthcare check-in, I think. A team check-in obviously would happen every week where the founders and, you know, the other operators would all assemble and figure out the weekly agenda. So like one like crisp meeting. We did do like a meeting around growth like once a week. I feel like in any new experiment, like the core components, the product, the growth, the ops, like you gotta like have a weekly check-in just to have a cadence and know what your goals are and what you want to achieve together. With psychologists, like we would spend like maybe once a fortnight or once a week, once in a while, but we'll lower the frequency as our relationship became better, right? Because you want them to also like run their own show. You don't want them to be like, you know, stuck in meetings. Like their time is your business at the end of the day.
And how did you know how their sessions are going or how their sessions are going? Were those sessions super private? Did you guys have recordings, or how would you know how the sessions are going?
No, it's 100% confidential. Like, you know, it's between the psychologist and the user or the client, but there's a feedback loop in the product, right? So like post your therapy session, you can always review, leave a testimonial, we'll ask you to rate it. So we got like those inputs from the customer directly. The other beautiful thing we did from day one was set up a CX team, which we call a care team, which is kind of our concierge model on WhatsApp. See, we realized that India runs on WhatsApp and we need our care team or our customer, you know, experience team on WhatsApp. We wanted it to be conversational. This learning I borrowed from my last company, which was a food tech company. I realized consumer is a lot about servicing. Product plays a huge role, but if you want to drive retention, if you improve revenue ops, you need to talk to the consumer. You have to like, you know, show them respect and make them feel valued, because most companies don't do that. If you do that, that becomes a big superpower in mode. So our care team like would use emojis. Like I would text my friends, right? Like we have like a rocket emoji, we have a balloon we send you, we have like an orange heart we send you because our brand color is orange. Those tiny details matter. It's how you write the message that matters. Like, so you want to not really sell someone a product, you want to really engage with them and listen to them. Honestly, Ritika and I were on CX for the first 1.5 years. Just talking to our customers on WhatsApp. We did CX shifts just like everyone else did. 1.5 years later is when we had a full-fledged CX team probably. Then we were like, okay, we can spend less time because we learned so much from our customers. So anyone like starting in the first 3 months, they have to, not just first 3 months, I do think the first couple of years, you have to be on CX. You have to talk to your consumer. Otherwise, you won't know what to build.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. Year and a half, I'm sure you were on like 1,000 CS interactions.
I still remember being on like customer support at 1 a.m. And then like the next day, like, you know, because there was nobody doing a shift early morning, like either Ritik or I'll do a morning shift. Because you gotta like build with constraint and less resources, then you have to pitch in everywhere as a founder, right?
So if a founder today is starting a health services company, a mental health company, an online health company, what would your top 2, 3, what is it? What did you wish you knew at day zero if you had to do this all over again?
Right.
Or in other words, like what I don't want to call it advice,
Mm-hmm.
but what would you tell folks to focus on, having now had this journey and essentially you are still delivering this quality at scale?
Right.
What should they watch out for if they are doing online health services?
I mean, online health services, or for that matter, any online, like, consumer-led product, I feel it has to solve a legit problem, because it makes your job as an entrepreneur so much easier if you focus on the problem you're trying to solve. Like in our case, it was lack of mental health care, professionals out there, and how do we build that supply on our platform, and in that journey build a brand, right? So we were trying to fix that mental health care gap. So similarly, anyone who's trying to build in healthcare, or is trying to build in any online digital consumer-led ecosystem, I feel like spotting that problem, and then the other way to look at it is like benchmarking against other people who are doing it. Can you improve what you're doing by 10-20%? It could be your CX, it could be a product, it could be a brand, it could be the quality of the product you deliver or service you deliver. So those areas, if you can just go better, I feel like it gives you an edge to begin with. And then as you go get that early validation, it boosts your confidence as a founder. See, like the month 1, what you started would not be what you are doing in month 12 or month 18. Your product evolves, your business evolves. Like today, what we do is like very different also in some ways from what we used to do like back then.
Yeah.
So I think it's a gradual process, but our job as a founder is to survive also. To survive, you gotta put in those reps, which also give you that validation. And validation in a business is cash. People have to pay for the product. Like the product should have some quality. So I think like it's extremely important to focus on the problem and talk to who your ICP is or who the user is. If you can crack that as early as possible, and it's not easy, by the way, like certain markets are very audacious, like we feel like we'll build an amazing product, it does not work out. So it's very important to narrow. Like for example, today we do therapy, psychiatry, we have diagnostics, we have cloud pharmacy. We didn't have all of that early on. All we focused on was online therapy, and that to counseling therapy. Because we were like, let's go narrow, figure out this audience, and then we will build ancillary products on top of it.
Awesome. The last thing I want to ask you is, and this is hard to quantify, but what do you think in the last 5 short years, how do you think mental health perception or adoption has changed in India? Not just for Rocket Health, but we all anecdotally feel that it might have come exponentially, or at least that's what we're hearing from social media. But you have a little more data. How do you think mental health adoption and perception has changed?
No, phenomenal change, obviously. Huge shout out to Nirmala Sitharaman to kind of like talk about mental health care in the budget as well. That shows validation from the government and signaling for like the larger business community amongst like folks. I feel like if you go on social media on Instagram today, everyone's vulnerable. Everyone's talking about how they're feeling. Mental health has become cool versus what it used to be 10 years ago. Like people would not, would shy away from talking about it. Today it's become dinner table conversations. People know what a therapist is. People know what online therapy is. So that just goes on to show like, the education which has happened in the last 5 years. COVID had a huge role to play, I feel like, in teaching people that, and social media had a bigger role. But the credit which I like to give is to the generation like Gen Z. I feel like they take charge of their mental health. They take charge of health in general. They democratize it for everyone. They communicate about it to the world. And I think that has also allowed like, to amplify the message of mental health and make it like normal, which is how it should be. So I think Gen Z had like a pivotal role in making mental health care more democratized in India. So I do think like they're definitely to be thanked.
Amazing. Well, I hope you keep contributing to that journey in India and beyond. And thanks for doing this.
No, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks. Bye.